Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this is the Black Ember Shadow, 22 liters. Now, as his name suggests, it's an all-black bag by the company called Black Ember, which are kind of famous for their Kickstarter-esque bags that have a lot of really high-tech materials and a lot of modularity or external things you can add or remove, etc. Now, unlike most of their other bags, this particular bag is intended as sort of a standalone 22-liter EDC day pack. So there's not a lot of like modularity or other things you can add or remove from this bag, although it does have some kind of cool little bits of adjustability here and there inside of the bag that I'll show you soon. Now, its main claim to fame is it actually has this really interesting accordion type pocket built in on the inside front flap of the bag. And some of you who have seen my review of the TKS sling by Black Ember will recognize this. This is exactly the same kind that they had in there, although it actually works a lot better in this bag than in the TKS sling, in my opinion. Beyond that, its other great claim to fame is this really interesting material that they use for the outside and just the general kind of high-tech, laser cut Hypalon and, blacked out hardware, YKK, AquaGuard zips, etc. that we've come to expect from Black Ember. And it also has quite a high degree of organization in terms of the number of pockets, although there are some quirks in some of those pockets in use. Now, its main weaknesses is that, as you probably have already seen, this bag is kind of floppy, especially when it's not really filled out. And that doesn't actually make it look as great as it could, in my opinion. The back panel and straps have a lot of interesting adjustability, but they are a little bit fiddly in use, in my personal opinion here. And I'll talk about those when I get to that section. And finally, some of the pockets, while they are plentiful, are a little bit hard to use because of just how tight they are, or kind of just how they're organized and arranged, which again, I'll show you. Now, it's available only in black, but it is available in two different sizes, excuse me. This is a 22 liter, but there's also a 26 liter. Now, besides the size difference in the two bags, the only other difference you might find is the 22 liter is just flat on the bottom here, but the 26 has two removable straps at the bottom that you can use to attach things to it. So next, let's talk about who this bag is for and who it's not for. So I think this is a pretty good bag for people who like that kind of high-tech minimalist aesthetic here. So it does have a fair amount of straps and handles and stuff. So true minimalists might argue that this bag is not the exact epitome of minimalism, but I do think that the black on black colorway and just sort of how subdued everything is until you get up close actually makes that a pretty good match for people who like that aesthetic. And obviously the bag has a lot of high-tech materials in it and just the way that it's kind of constructed. So I think that works well for people who appreciate that kind of a design approach. I think this is also a pretty good bag for people who like a lot of pockets. As I mentioned, it does have this kind of interesting accordion built-in, Organiser built-in. It does have a fair number of pockets on the inside and here, and then also in this front flap area here, which I'll show you later on. You can see maybe you can see if I can get this organized correctly. There's a bunch of different pockets in front of here, etc. So it is kind of nice for folks who like that. And finally, folks who are living in rainy, wet areas such as the Pacific Northwest, London, commuting on foot, where you want a bag with high water resistance, this is a pretty good choice for that. It also works really well with like that North Face, Arc'teryx kind of urban outerwear aesthetic, if that's your vibe, in my opinion. Now, I don't think this is a great bag for people who don't plan on carrying that much inside of it or filling it up. As you can see, this is a 22 liter. I don't even have it filled up all that much, and it is a kind of a floppy bag. You can see how the top kind of just buckles down or pulls down from the weight of that accordion. It's just very, very floppy. There's no like structure per se to it. The back panel, of course, has, a frame sheet, or sort of frame sheet, has these foam pads anyway. So that kind of keeps it straight, but it's not the best bag in terms of like how it looks and how it carries when it's not really well packed out. I also don't think this is a good bag for people who like to work in and out of their bags, by which I mean, you know, a common pattern is you'll take a bag, you'll drop it next to you in the cafe, and then you'll try and work in and out of it. As you can see, this bag doesn't stand up on its own, and the floppiness of the bag means it is a little bit fussy sometimes to kind of, like you can't stand it up and get stuff in and out of it. It just falls over and it flops just a little bit more. The accordion bar, like everything is like a two-handed interaction with this bag. So not the best choice if you're looking for like a bag you can drop down and work in and out of. And finally, I think that people who are not willing to put up with some odd quirks in the name of a cool design or interesting aesthetic, this may not be the best bag for you. Like, it has a lot of cool ideas and a lot of cool features, but the overall usability and user experience of those altogether is not without compromise. And some people don't like that, and I don't recommend this for you if that's the kind of person that you are. So next, let's talk about the exterior design of this bag. Now, the first thing that you notice with this bag, in my opinion, is just this really great material that the bag is made out of. As far as I know, it's something that, I don't know if it's proprietary, but belongs just to Black Ember. It's called their MicroHex HTX, and it's this high tenacity 3-layer waterproof textile. What that really means is it's, you know, it's a high-tech or artificial fabric, but it feels like cloth, or like fabric, not like cloth. And I guess what I mean is, like, some of their other bags tend to have like kind of almost like a tarpaulin or like rubbery feeling. A lot of higher tech materials will feel a little less organic and more high tech. I guess that's why they are high tech. This one has a tooth or a hand to it that, for me, it has that sort of like, just, it feels like a bag. I don't want to use that cliche, but that's what I think. And I appreciate that, because I've never really seen that in any other bags. The inside of the bag's fabric does actually have like that rubbery coating, but you don't actually feel it in too many of the actual surfaces that you'll touch. Those feel like just more like what you would expect from a bag. It's just on the inside of the sidewalls, which you don't really interact on that much. Now, the other thing that you notice besides the fabric is, like, you know, all the other materials. So laser cut Hypalon zipper pulls, aluminum hardware, YKK Aquaguard zips, just bits of aluminum hardware, Hypalon details, just kind of all fidlock buckles, all these kind of like nice high-tech hardware choices that you've come to expect from more expensive or higher end or high-tech looking bags these days. Now, the other thing that you kind of, you know, stands up to you is it doesn't stand up on its own. It is floppy, as I've called out a few times. I think that's another thing that most people notice about this bag when they see it, or when it's being worn, or when they first interact with it. It reminds me of a more high-tech material version of the Heim Planet Monolith Daypack 22, which is also kind of the same design style. A little bit more travel-oriented, including the droopiness, and I'll link the video to that I've done a review of that bag down below. So I think that's kind of an interesting parallel. It's like the high-tech version of that. I would describe this bag's aesthetic as like stealthy. It's not quite minimalist, as I said, due to the proliferation of all these different straps and bits and bobs here, but it has that nice blacked out colorway, all black everything. And I think it's overall a fairly good looking bag, though obviously fashion is in the eye of the beholder, if this is the kind of vibe that you like in a bag. So next, let's talk about the zippers on this bag. So I've already mentioned a few times YKK Aquaguard zips. Now here's what's interesting about them. They run really, really smoothly. Like, this is one of the better bags I found in terms of the smoothness of the zippers when they're using waterproof zips, even though it is kind of floppy. Usually floppy bags like this tend to catch, or they tend to require two hands to operate. This one does catch a little bit, as you can see, but I found it actually runs really smoothly compared to a lot of the other bags I've reviewed that are using these YKK zips that are a little bit floppy at the top. I don't know how they did it, but it's a pretty good experience. Also, these big, long Hypalon zipper pulls on the front of the bag, I like them. They're really easy to pull. They don't like rattle or clank around as much as you would expect. And I just find them actually like a really nice alternative to the traditional paracord or heat shrunk paracord tubing. They also have this feature where you can they have holes in them. You can push one through here and it sort of locks a little bit like this. I mean, obviously it doesn't take much to unlock it, but it does give you a little bit of extra security for, high pickpocket risk areas. You can, for example, lock the zippers together and then run it down to the bottom of the bag or something like that, and it would just be a little bit extra effort. You can also push through this zipper pull here in the front to this zipper garage part, and it also gives you that little bit of extra security there. In general, I'm surprisingly pleased with how well, as smooth and well executed the zippers and the access are on this bag, because that's really all there is for zippers. There's one big external front pocket, and then, one main pocket, and then one big external compartment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk about this front pocket first. I'm gonna talk about the straps of the bag, and then we'll get into the inside of this bag here. So there is this one front first order access pocket, and it's kind of an interesting construction. So I'm gonna lay the bag down a little bit. The front compartment of this bag opens up here about 2/3 of the way up the front. This is the top of the bag, this is the bottom of the bag. And it has space at the top above the zipper opening and below the zipper opening. This part makes sense. This part, a little bit strange because it's not really usable, and we'll talk about that. Now, the other important thing to kind of mention about this is it has its own dimension, which I think is really nice. Here's the plane of the internal part of this bag that divides it from the main divider. And you can see there's quite a lot of space actually. And I found that really useful. Like I can stuff things in here, like, I guess like a towel or like a light shell or something like that will actually fit in here quite nicely and still be accessible. I also found it useful for being able to just drop stuff into here. Now, beyond the fact that you can just drop things into here, which I think, and get them out in and out really easily, the inside of this front pocket has a lot of organization. Okay, so here we are looking in how you would see if you're looking in the front of this front pocket here. Now the first thing is there's this fidlock attached magnetic keychain. I got my keys on there obviously. Now the interesting thing about this fidlock keychain, which I like that it comes on and off, it's easy to kind of attach it, but when you put it in there, when you put your keys on there, it hangs down like this. And that is hanging right over the front of these two pockets that are here on the inside. And that actually makes it a little bit annoying to use these pockets, especially the back one here, because the keys are just hanging right over the front, right in the middle. And I just found that a kind of an annoying friction that limits how usable and what these pockets are and what I put inside of them. But I do like that you can just kind of remove your keys just like that. So once we remove the keys in there, we have here, this is the right-hand side of the bag, two pockets on top of each other. The first one has kind of a stretchy mesh, which I really like, and I find that improves the usability of it. Inside of there, I just have like a chapstick and some alcohol for sanitization. And then behind there, you have this rigid, non-flexible, flat pocket. This one's a lot harder to use, especially with the keys are hanging over the front of it. In there right now, I just have like an extra mask, cloth mask in case my other one breaks, but I don't usually find this one very easy to access because of the key issue and because there's no stretch in here and how flat it is. So I might put like some hand wipes or some cough drops, something I don't usually need to get into. Now, looking at the middle pocket here, we have two stretchy pen pockets. Inside of here, I just have a James brand Benton pen, just for writing things down. And I find these fairly easy to use because they're stretchy and they're right in the middle. And then on the left-hand side, we have the same arrangement as on the right-hand side, two pockets. Now the front one, same thing, stretchy material here, and inside of here I just have my mobile phone, usually where I keep it. This is the Leica Lights Phone 1. Leitz phone, I don't actually know, I don't speak German. And then we have another flat pocket. And this one, similarly, hard to access as this one, although not as hard because you don't have the keys kind of hanging over the front. And in the back here, I just have a field notes notebook here. I find this one, again, a little bit annoying to get in and out of. Now, up here, there's all this extra volume, which is not really that usable, but one thing that there is that I don't personally use, but it is a feature. There is inside of here a hole, a pass-through, that's my finger, pass-through from this main accordion pocket. Now, those of you who have seen my Black Ember TKS sling review will recognize that's supposed to be, you're supposed to put a USB battery in here, in the accordion pocket, run a charging cable out through here, and then charge your phone in the front pocket of this bag. That is really annoying, and I just never use that feature because it's just too fussy in practice. And I just think that this entire front area, while I really appreciate how much, I guess, organization is inside of there, I appreciate the big volume and the dumpability. I think it could be improved even just a bit more if they had moved the zipper opening up a little bit more, which would allow us to just kind of like use the full width of this pocket rather than having like 1/3 of it sort of wasted space. And they could have gotten away with not even offering that pass-through feature, in my opinion. So next, let's talk about the back straps of the bag, or the straps of the carry handles of the bag, in fact. So the first thing I want to highlight is actually the carry handles, and there are 3, and it is great. So there's one carry handle here. It's actually fairly straightforward. It's just sort of sewn over, same material as the body, light padding and reinforcement in there. One on the side, which is super useful for carrying it in briefcase mode. One at the top for all the things that you want to do when you're carrying your bag like this, and then one on the other side. So this bag is super easy to manipulate, both because of its size and 2, because of like these handles just being on all sides of the bag. I wish that all bags had handles on both sides, not just one or the other. Now, the downside is you don't get a water bottle pocket on here, so for some people that might be a deal breaker, though there is one inside, which I'll show you in a moment here. In general, I really like these carry handles. I think they're low profile and they get the job done. Now, the one downside is because the bag is floppy, because there's no reinforcement when you're carrying it, it does tend to sag in all directions, as you can kind of see, and that's just unavoidable, I think, due to the nature of the bag's construction. I will note that because the top handle attaches nearer to the sort of back frame, it sags less than the ones on the side handles. Okay, so let's turn it around and take a look at these shoulder straps on the front here. So this has some pretty interesting shoulder straps. Now, they are fairly comfortable overall in terms of the load, carriage, and weight distribution, in my opinion. I've carried this bag for quite a while. I've used this for a few months now. Taking trips with it. I've used it for EDC. I've used it, carrying camera equipment, going out for light hikes, etc. And these shoulder straps do a good job. They're fairly wide. They have some fairly dense, but not like incredibly uncomfortable foam, not unreasonably thick. Standard air mesh on the back here. And then they've got some interesting construction going on. So the first thing, and the most notable thing, is they're actually attached to kind of some slider buckles here. They attach the bag to a slider buckles here through this, I don't know if it's Hypalon, but some sort of, maybe not, maybe a nylon strap, which is wide and flat, and then it has Velcro on both sides. And you can technically adjust the length of the bag, of this connecting piece, and thus adjust the length of the shoulder strap relative to the backpack itself. Now, there's no load lifters. They're not load lifters. They're just actually how the bag shoulder straps are attached. Now, I think that this is supposed to be to help customize the fit on your bag or bring it closer to you or something like that. I didn't really find that big of a difference regardless of how I adjusted it within reason. One thing that I don't really like about shoulder straps that are designed like this is they tend to twist more easily, as you can see, because there's only this thin fabric attached here. But generally speaking, in practice, I didn't find it too bad if I kind of just cinched them up a little bit closer to the bag. This is how I usually wear it here. And then, the broadness of it combined with some of the curvature we'll talk about here in a second, I found helped keep it pretty stable on my back without too much strap twisting. I also didn't really see that these were that extra, or didn't bring that much functionality in my opinion. Now, there's a sternum strap. It is a standard kind of toggle type push through. It's hard to get in and out here, but it's actually fairly secure once you've got it in there, so I like that. You just adjust it once and forget about it. Fidlock buckle, connector in the middle, and a little piece here with elastic in there to allow it to kind of flex under load. It's a well done sternum strap in my opinion. Great example of how to do it right with a little bit of extra functionality thanks to the fast Fidlock buckle. Hypalon detail here for the aluminum hardware slider, and then you've got the strap sliders here. And here's the thing that's been making all this noise here, is you have these D-rings at the bottom where the slider connects here at the bottom. They don't actually let you really pull them. I mean, they do, but like not while you're wearing the bag. You would think that with if they were on there, you could just kind of pull and cinch it tight, but I found that I actually have to take it off because it just tends to get, you know, there's two slider adjustment points. One slider adjustment point here and one slider adjustment point here. So I actually found, like, to adjust the length of the strap, I had to take it off and use both hands. So I didn't quite understand what these D-rings were for because I couldn't really like cinch it tight while wearing it. But anyway, it is very secure once you've got the load or the length dialed in, and it doesn't come loose, which I appreciate. The other thing that's interesting when you get back here is this back panel. And before we talk about the back panel, let's talk about this luggage pass-through for just a second. It is, as you would expect, a luggage pass-through. It's not the best in the world. These center-oriented ones, thin strap ones, they'll kind of keep it secured, but as I mentioned, this bag is kind of floppy, especially if it's not super loaded out. So I found it kind of to twist a little bit, twist on the my rolling luggage handles, but it is better to have it, I guess, than not to have it. So then we turn our attention to these back panels. Now these back panels are kind of interesting in that they are sort of, well, not sort of, completely free floating. It's this foam, two parts of foam. This foam. You kind of see on camera there's some holes in there for ventilation. And then in the middle it's just fabric. So sort of not quite wings, but kind of wings you can see here. That kind of just pass through completely, and it's a bit odd, and you're like, well, why is it like that? That's what I thought when I first saw it. They're secured with these, you know, broad pieces of Velcro that actually do a pretty good job of keeping it secured once it's locked down. Now, when you wear the bag, I think Black Ember kind of claims that it sort of contours a little bit to your back, you know, when you pull the strap here because it's sort of not attached. This foam thing kind of like contours to your shoulders. The bag has some softness because there's no frame sheet per se, it's just these two stiff pieces of foam, or semi-stiff pieces of foam. So it does definitely kind of curve to your back a bit. Because it's not that big of a bag, and because these shoulder straps and the sternum strap do a pretty good job of kind of keeping the bag securely affixed to your center of mass, I found it's fairly comfortable to wear. I don't know how much of it is due to this kind of curvature, free-floating nature of it, but it is, I found, kind of an interesting solution for a bag of this size. I wonder how it would do with the 26-liter one. I don't have that one, so I don't know. Now, what these removable or these opening wings do let you do is actually do something kind of cool, which is tuck away these shoulder straps in a way that I consider to be quite effective. So a lot of bags that try and do this stowing shoulder strap thing don't do it very well, in my opinion, because they're either super fiddly or they're not very secure, especially if they use like magnets, like Peak Design tries to use magnets. They never stay shut. How do they work? They never stay shut. Other bags will have you like do a zipping or an unzipping or clipping, unclipping here and stuffing them down top. Or this one, okay, is big, broad, you know, flaps, flip it open, slide the shoulder straps in, and like this is clean. Like I do have this little bit sticking out here, but you can kind of push it in there. That's like, this is really clean, actually. I was surprised. And the other thing is I mentioned, like, you know, there's these Velcro or there's straps that kind of Velcro attach in to adjust the shoulder length. I found that they give them a little bit of extra play depending on how I set them, so that the shoulder straps basically just fits in nicely. It folds in nicely into here when you're stowing it. And like, there's no dangling straps when you've got it all stowed like this. I was really surprised. Now, the weird thing is, because the bag itself is a little bit floppy, as you can see, I don't see any real case where I would normally use this in a briefcase mode with the shoulders straps stowed like this. I did do it once to push it under the front seat of, or the seat in front of me in an airplane just to see, but in reality, I mean, it was clean, but in reality, you know, like it was fine. Like, I don't usually mind having the shoulder straps there. I just fiddle with it once and then I leave it underneath the seat anyway. So, but anyway, I really like how clean this is. It is almost a shame that like it's not probably going to be used in briefcase mode by most people most of the time. The other kind of advantage here is like now you can stow it on your your luggage pass through. Just you don't have like the shoulder straps dangling like you usually do with bags like this. But again, you still have the problem that like because it's so floppy, it'll kind of rotate on there. So with that out of the way, let's get into the inside of this bag here. So this bag opens up like this. It can be ripped open, but you know, it's not like a mystery ranch bag where you can just rip it open. They're not delicate zippers, but they do require a bit of care. It actually opens with what I refer to as a reverse clamshell, by which I mean this is the front of the bag. You can see like most of the volume, or the majority of the volume, opens towards the front, half of the bag, the front portion of the bag, and only this much, like, you know, this, let's see if we can, you know, a significant difference goes towards the front of the bag, and only a little bit in the back, which just really houses these couple of laptop devices here. So let's talk about this. In the back, pretty straightforward, two padded device compartments. I have here an 11-inch MacBook, or no, iPad Pro, 13-inch MacBook Pro. It will fit a 15 or 16-inch MacBook Pro if you want. They're fairly well padded slots here. They've got a little bit of a nice fleece lining on the back here to make sure that your devices don't get scratched. Nothing else really to say about this here, in my opinion. The more interesting portion is this front part of the bag. And so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna flip it open. So this is the front of the bag, top of the bag here. So first thing you're gonna notice is this giant accordion pocket, which I've talked to you a little bit about already, and I think it's one of these bags' claim to fame. So some of you may have seen my review of the Black Ember TKS sling. It is a terrible sling, it is a terrible tech pouch, it is a terrible item. But that notwithstanding, it also had this exact same accordion pocket organizer thing built in. Now what they did is they took that exact same accordion pocket, put it in here, and it works a lot better in this bag. And there's a few reasons for that, in my opinion. Number one, because there's a lot of other pockets, like on the front, outside of this bag, or here on the inside of this bag, and vice here, or wherever. Like, you don't need to fit everything into this accordion pocket, which lets you choose what you put in here selectively, which makes it a lot more useful. Number two, because this is a backpack, and then this accordion pocket is near the top of the bag, this is the back, this is the front, when you unzip the top, it's right there. And then when you open it, that means it opens just like this. Swinging the bag over my shoulder, flipping it open, and then I've got the entire accordion pocket right, I'll show you here, like right at the top here, which is super easy to access from this way. So I thought it was quite useful in that respect. So going back here, the accordion pocket, again, you should just see my Black Ember TKS review if you want more, but it opens up and it gives you all these pockets, a big flat one in the back, which, as I mentioned, is sort of intended for a USB battery with this pass-through hole here. Do you run it in here so you can charge your phone in the front pocket? I don't do that. And then a bunch of other, you know, slightly flatter ones in the front here, and then obviously accordions here. What I've got in here very quickly, I've got like a phone stand, a wiping cloth, a SD reader, like a glass cleaning cloth, my Bellroy Apex wallet, coin pouch, AirPod Pros in here, and then just some little odds and ends like a SD card and some screen wipes, a Band-Aid, etc. And I found it kind of useful just having all of these things in their own little pocket without requiring like a big pouch or anything to keep them there. And then it closes with this magnetic fidlock buckle, which is, again, pretty easy. Now, same criticisms that I levied on this kind of pocket in the TKS sling apply here. There's no elasticity, and I wish it were, like especially here, I wish this were a little bit more elastic. You could hold more stuff. It's a little bit shallow, but that is somewhat addressed by the fact that the fabric on this outside is a little bit floppy, so when you actually have it stuffed, it's able to pull from the front. You can see it's kind of pulling in to give you a little bit of extra, like, not stretch, but depth to this accordion pocket that you would not be able to get with the TKS sling. So I thought that was useful, albeit a little bit ugly in practice, but still useful. Now, beyond this, there's also this slot here for a pen you're supposed to run through. I never use it on this one. I did use it in the TKS sling. Then on the inside front part, we have this big mesh stretchy pocket. Inside of here I have masks, cables, a little eco bag, etc. I found this a nice place to just dump some stuff that you don't necessarily want in that front pocket, but you don't want to, want to access all the time. You don't want to care about if it's super bulky or whatever. So again, cables, masks, stuff like that I think work well. And then you have this other pocket here. Right now I have a big Mophie USB battery, but this is actually intended as a water bottle pocket. So there's none on the outside, but there's one here. I like this pocket. This one zips shut. This one does not. I found this pocket's a little bit floppy, the mesh, but overall quite usable. And it works well for this bag and for their aesthetic. And then the last thing is, I just have this Moment mini tech organizer, which I just throw in here. And as I mentioned, this bag is sort of easy to throw stuff into because of how it kind of opens up. Now, I said the last thing, and what I meant to say is, because this is a reverse clamshell, it is a little bit harder to load than like normal clamshells where most of the volume is in the back. You can just throw everything in there. So, for example, you can see here, like some floppiness here when you open the bag up. And in fact, when you open the bag all the way, you can see it's only connected with this little bridge of fabric at the bottom, which makes it a little bit floppy, a little bit unwieldy. And then you combine that with the floppiness of the fabric. If you're loading a bunch of stuff in here, it's kind of, it's not impossible, but it's just a little bit annoying to kind of load it up well. And I sometimes find myself closing it this way, back to front, just to try and get everything kind of sealed in there. Not unusable by any means, but just something to think about. But if you're in the market for a bag like this, what are some other bags that you might want to consider? Well, first and foremost, let's start with what I would consider probably a good EDC black bag in a similar vein as this, same general size. For most people, that's also, $50 cheaper, give or take. This is the Air Day Pack. I think this is the V1, there's like a V2 now. Same general aesthetic, kind of the same idea of like a front area that has its own volume, is easy to load in. Combination of like bunch of pockets and organization, along with a big kind of like, not clamshell, but a big dump area, dual device pockets, and some extra stuff you don't get in here, which is like a quick stash pocket, etc. And it also stands up on its own. So this is actually a pretty good bag for being able to work in and out of at an office, cafe, etc., whatever. So this is probably like, compared to this, the downside is probably like the materials are less exciting. It's just 1000 D Cordura, but it's really robustly built and it's very useful, and it's more usable, I would say, for the intended use cases for like the majority of people out there. If you are a deep pocketed carry enthusiast who loves the all black aesthetic and you want a high-tech day pack, well, this is my much beloved Rofmia Shift Day Pack V2. It's made by hand by a Japanese craftsman out in Gifu. It has made out of Dyneema. I've used this bag quite a bit, as you can see from the wear on the Dyneema here. It is a really sexy bag, same minimalist, high-tech aesthetic, in my opinion. Kind of same general, a little bit of floppiness, even though it has more structure because it is Dyneema. Good combination of like large main storage and some, different kinds of external organization with pocketing, etc. The biggest, I guess, claim to, or infamy for this bag is its price, which I believe is something around $600 US, which is 2 to 3 times what, maybe 2.5 times what the cost of this bag is. But anyway, it is another bag to consider for folks who are looking for like a high-tech, minimalist day pack that has some really interesting materials. And finally, another bag that I think fits really nicely in this genre. This is going to be the Evergoods CPL 24. I consider this is the V2. The V1 is also incredible, that I've used and loved for many years. I have so many copies of Evergoods bags and CPL 24s in particular that I'm ashamed to admit on camera, so I'm not going to. This is one of my favorite bags ever, just the CPL line, the Civic Panel Loader line. It is what I think is kind of like maybe the class leader for this type of bag, in my opinion, for my use cases. Standard clamshell opening, lots of pocketing, big open area, lots of pocketing on the inside, front pocket with its own dimension, separate laptop compartment or device compartment in the back here. Nice ergonomic construction, great kind of curvature here of the yoke where the shoulder straps meet your shoulders and the bag and contrast there. You have this yoke pocket at the top that's in the V2s anyway. That I think actually this curvature here is probably, this yoke curvature is probably what Black Ember was trying to emulate when they did with this sort of floating wing here. Anyway, probably the downsides of this bag, depending on your perspective, is the materials may not be as exotic as the Black Embers, and some of the materials like the hardware or the zippers may not be as exotic, but this is by far a much more robust bag, and I think a really good choice, but it's also a bit more expensive than this one. All right, and that is it. So if you have any questions about this bag, go ahead and leave those in the comments below, and if I can, I will answer them. And if you have any bags you would like me to review, go ahead and leave those in the comments, and if I can, I will answer those. Thank you very much.